Well, for a closer look at the issue of global trade, we are joined now by Joe Minarik. He is the Vice President and Director of Research at the Committee for Economic Development. This was so interesting. Last week it was one statement from Donald Trump. This week it seemed to be softened. Everyone saw it as the opening salvo in a trade war, but it kind of was backed off a little bit. As Nathan King was saying, up to an hour beforehand, there's confusion about it. What's your read on all of this?
We don't have an awful lot of principle and conviction behind these kinds of decisions. The turnaround on the notion of exemptions or not overnight is really unsettling. If you think that there's some notion of, some intellectual discipline that's being imposed on this, it just is so unsettling in trying to think of where policy is going to go next.
Talk to me about the juxtaposition, because we just had Joel's piece on, this was the TPP, the Obama administration really pushing it forward. It went nowhere. Trump says, I don't want any part of that. So you see globalization on one side, you see protectionism here in Washington. What's your read on all of this?
Well, the administration has clearly taken a U-turn on a number of our principles with respect to trading. Your feature mentioned the fact that there's a zero-sum perspective. The administration wants to look at each individual trading partner with the principle or the idea that we ought to run a surplus with every one of them. Now, of course, the whole world can't run a surplus with everybody else. It's logically impossible. But you decide that that's where you are. You turn your back on what had been, I think, arguably a very sound multilateral agreement. The rest of the world has decided that agreement, the TPP, was worth doing. They're going to go ahead and do it. They're going to take the U.S. demands off the table and leave them off of they left them out of the agreement. So you have these dueling philosophies, the win-win versus the zero-sum transaction, the one-by-one unilateral perspective versus the fact that everybody trades with everybody else and you want everybody to be playing by the same rules. It's just, they're totally different philosophies.
So, Joe, as you know, Donald Trump really sold himself as a businessman. He's going to do business. We're over a year into his administration. Where is the United States when it comes to business? I mean, the NAFTA negotiations, they're not done. They're kind of dragging on. Where is the U.S.?
President comes from a particular part of the business world. It's the privately held, family-owned business. So he's never dealt with the board. He's never dealt with shareholders. I mean, there was one exception, and that corporation went under. So he does not know what it is to run a large enterprise. He has done business in other countries, but not in the sense that, say, a U.S. manufacturer trades and has to buy inputs from different parts of the world, ship them over U.S. borders, pay tariffs, deal with trade restrictions, and so forth. So his perception of the way the business system works is really very particular and very limited. And we are going to hear, I think, as this, for example, the TPP in its revised form takes advantage of some market opening by Japan, but U.S. businesses can't take advantage of that. As U.S. businesses have to deal with the tariffs that have been declared today, you're going to see some concern on the part of the business community and some greater understanding of the fact that the president's perspective of business is a very particular and very narrow one.
And we're already hearing from some Republicans in his own party saying that they're going to try and introduce legislation. Joe, always a pleasure seeing you. Thanks so much for your analysis.
Thank you.